You know, Chris brings up an interesting point because there's been a lot of press of late talking about the millennial generation and why aren't they buying homes. But if you pick up any kind of a trade publication or some of our national publications over the past few weeks and few months, you'll see that the millennials are now very active in entering the market, whether they're buying existing or considering building a new home. And they are coming off the sideline. They are very interested in buying a house one way or another, so they're engaging at this point.
I mean, we've seen a pretty big shift in the last 5 to 7 years in our first-time homebuyers program. It used to be, as a general rule, single heads of household with kids. We're seeing a lot of single individuals now who are saying, I want to buy. Right? There's no, why would I rent if I can actually buy, build some equity, you know, build my assets, and again, have this be my first home that maybe can lead to my second home and my third home. So there's clearly still a strong interest in becoming a homeowner.
And part of the reason too is that rental rates were continuing to go up and up and up for so many years. It was pricing people out of the market. It was more attractive to buy a home.
There's a lot to unpack there. One second, because we're going to talk about the millennials. This is a great time to talk about what we heard from a lot of people on social media. Not to say that only millennials are in our Twitter poll. I want to be clear about that.
But it might make up a good
percentage.
It might.
I've participated in a Twitter poll or two in my time, and I don't think I qualify as a millennial. Twitter poll, is owning a home part of, Chris, you talked about this, you said American dream. Is it part of your American dream? 2/3 say it is. Mm-hmm. I think that might surprise people. And again, we know that these things aren't necessarily scientific here, but you're saying it is still part of the definition that millennials might have.
Every generation has shifts and change in terms of what they're interested in and why. So clearly, the connectivity of our devices says, for some, it doesn't really matter where the roof is, right? My life is around other things, but there's so many who still like, look, I know how I grew up, I know what was important. As I start thinking about having a family, what do I want, right? And what are things that are important to me? And it always comes back to one home, right? When we think of the idea of home, there's a certain thing that all of us have this warm feeling about. I remember my first home. I remember where I grew up. So yeah, as we're younger, we're doing a lot of other different things. When it comes time to say, okay, really, what do you want to do for you and your family? No matter what your family composition is, it comes back to, yeah, let's think about buying a home and what does that mean? And there's lots of ways to get assistance and get some help. And again, in St. Louis, great prices, mortgage rates are great time to be buying.
Surprisingly, in St. Louis, 47% of all home buyers are millennials.
That's higher than the national average.
It is, yeah. And in fact, Realtor.com,
quite a bit, if I'm not mistaken.
Realtor.com just last month said that St. Louis is the #3 market for first-time buyers in the whole country. So even though our prices are rising, and yes, there is an inventory issue, it's a real popular place for people to come. There's good jobs here. There's growth here, and when employers are looking at places to come, they see the middle of the country, affordable lifestyle, and the millennials are really loving St. Louis.
And you had mentioned Realtor.com. They also had a stat out that was very interesting to talk about why we're talking about this subject today. St. Louis is #2 in the country when it comes to pent-up demand. So there's another reason that the housing industry is really starting to boom.